r/ask Reddit. Serious, what was your biggest "we need to leave now" moment? I used to drive for Lyft. April 2018. I picked up a young couple from a bar at about 1:30 a.m. They were fairly chill and I figured it would be my last ride of the night. The dude asked me to stop at a corner store on the way to their destination so that he could get cigarettes. I didn't see any harm in waiting, so I stopped and had a nice chat with the young woman while he was in the store. He ended up being about 5 minutes since everyone was trying to get their pre-2 beer. When he came out, he asked me to take him to a location that was in the opposite direction of their destination, but was only about a mile away. He said he wanted to meet some friends real quick and grab some beer. Since I figured it would be my last ride of the night, I said duck it, why not, and drive him over there. Now, I know the town we live in fairly well, but the direction that we were coming from was not a way I was used to going when I would go to this location. So when I turned onto the destination street, I missed the turn into the complex parking lot. I just came to a complete stop since the roads were empty and asked them if they just wanted me to park on the street or pull into the complex. This is when the two of them started arguing, as he suddenly wanted to go in and hang out for a few minutes while she didn't want to go in at all. She just wanted him to do his thing and get out of there so they could go home. And then something hit my car. The sound is unmistakable to me, so I immediately started to look around to figure out what it was. But there were no other cars on the road, so that couldn't have been it. Then I moved to the next thing on my mental checklist. If something didn't hit me, then what did I hit? But that didn't make any sense either, as I'd been in park and couldn't have hit anything. It's at this point that the young lady's attitude completely changed. She just kinda looked around, and then said, "Can we just get out of here? It hurts and I want to go home." This was odd to me, as she'd been sitting in my car for about 10 minutes at this point and hadn't said a word about any kind of pain. She followed this up with "it hurts and I can't move," put her hand to her back, and pulled it out covered in blood. What the duck? So the guy starts freaking out, thinking that something in my trunk had exploded, but it was empty. As he reached over to tend to her, I noticed something white sticking out of the seat. This hadn't been there at the beginning of the night, so I asked him what it was. He pulled on it. It was a piece of the filler fuzz from my seat. It came out of the hole that had been made in the seat because she'd been shot. As soon he grabbed that fuzz, we both had the same realization. He slammed shut his door and I drove them straight to the hospital, which was only a couple of miles away. That realization, and the follow-up realization of, oh, someone could still shoot you while you're sitting here, was one of the most terrifying things I'd ever experienced. About 2 months ago, I'd stayed up past my usual bedtime, and as soon as I got in bed I smelled something odd and was hearing some inconsistent banging and clattering from downstairs. I don't live in a great neighborhood, so none of this was unusual, but I got out of bed to check anyway and saw flames licking up the side of the building. Yelled at my wife to get out of bed and threw on some clothes, and we hightailed it out. Our building has a shared wall with the next, and that one had an apartment on the ground floor fully engulfed by the time we made it outside. Ended up condemning the whole building. I was the first one to call 911. Have been jerking myself awake in the night pretty consistently since then. Greater than I don't live in a great neighborhood. When I was 7, our next door neighbor came pounding on our front door to scream at and threaten to kill my dad because our pet that we kept in our backyard was being too loud. The pet was a rabbit. A rabbit. Life can just be weird at times. Grocery shopping with my grandma. She's tired, normal for her, but she's getting a bit slower and dragging her leg more than usual. At the checkout counter I saw her face was a little droopy, and I said, "We are leaving now and going to her." They gave her a bottle of water for the car ride, which she ended up choking on and vomiting up all the water. Called ahead to her so they were ready, and they took care of her ASAP. She was having a stroke and they were able to help her quick enough so that she didn't have any long-lasting issues. I was waiting for an Uber on the outskirts of Atlanta with a couple friends around 10 p.m. We were just shooting the shoot after leaving a nearby restaurant and talking about what bar to go to. A disheveled older man walked up a few feet behind one of my friends and struck a weird pose for 2 to 3 minutes while looking in our direction. And there was no one else around. Then he walked off without saying a word. He came back a few minutes later and sat down on the sidewalk about 5 feet away from us. At this point I'm just wondering if he wants something from us. Because there was absolutely no other reason to plop down that close to us on an empty sidewalk. Then a small sedan pulls in a nearby parking lot, parking behind some bushes in the spot closest to us and consequently furthest from any of the shops in that lot. I only noticed because I happened to be facing that direction, but then saw 6 guys pile out of the sedan and immediately cross the street directly towards us. I realized there were not any shops or restaurants still open nearby. It suddenly occurred to me that the strange dude might have been sizing us up when he was watching us earlier. And he came back to mark us. We were all dressed nice with smartphones out and watches visible. Basically the fanciest stuff we had for a night out. Right as I started to speak up that we should head back towards other people. Our Uber pulled up to the curb. As we drove away, I watched those 6 guys talking in a circle where we had just been standing. And then they crossed the street again and got back in their car. I'll never have a definitive answer, but I'm pretty sure we were 10 seconds away from some unfortunate shenanigans. Posted this before, but was very late to the party. I was on a date with a girl hiking a trail system that I knew like the back of my hand. Something felt weird, but I shook it. We went in around sunset. We were going to swim in one of the deep pools in the creek. Maybe 2 miles into the trail I get the feeling again. And she's talking her head off. But I was just listening to everything around me. I told her to stop talking. And she looked at me very concerned. I just put my finger to my lips and listened. I heard something familiar but I couldn't place it. We never stopped walking. We came to the arroyo just before the creek pool. And I heard it again. By this time I knew. I told her we were going to walk to the clearing where the arroyo was at and turn around. She told me she heard something weird. As we came to the clearing we stood there like statues. Dead silent. Her nails cut my arm from gripping it so hard. Then around 15 feet from us, the biggest mountain lion I've ever seen crossed the clearing with 2 of its young. She looked at us, and as our eyes met, my soul left my body, and I felt her grip tighten around my arm even tighter. She stopped and so did her babies. I'm guessing she sized us up. And then just kept going. The babies kept turning around looking at us. But ultimately they just slowly crossed the top of the hill and that was that. We turned around and told everyone we saw on the way in that there was 3 mountain lions on the trail. They all turned around and left. That was the first time I was ever scared out in nature. I didn't have a handgun on me. I had been there 100 times. She told me the sound she heard was a deep purring. And that was what I kept hearing also. I just hadn't put it together. Definitely a good thing she was talking her head off. Otherwise if you were close enough to hear purring that lioness would have been startled and gotten in full protection mode. When I was about 16, I went to visit my grandmother at her place. The smell of natural gas was intense. Even though Nana didn't seem to notice it much. She was groggy, sort of half asleep, not her usual responsive self. So I made her get out of the house at once and opened the windows and doors. I called Dad and he reported it to the gas company, who sent inspectors right away. They shut off the gas valve in the street immediately and sent a repair crew to fix a leaking joint in the gas supply pipe. The inspector said that if I hadn't acted then and there, the probability was great that there would soon have been an explosion. I was hiking with 2 friends and we were crossing through some big farms. One of the fenced-off areas had a herd of cows in it. They had like 20 calves and 150 cows. As we were walking through, they slowly ganged up on us from behind and literally encircled us. Facing inwards while standing next to each other. I think they surrounded us by like 300 degrees before we realized what was happening and ducking ran like hell the last 50 meters to the edge of the fenced area. I think the opening between the 2 ends of the open circle was like 20 meters and they were like 20 meters away from us. That was pretty insane TBH. I will never forget it. I learned to differentiate between the behavior of one creature opposed to a herd. It blew my mind how they all worked together in silence. I have never experienced fear physically like in that moment. When we hopped the fence, they followed us to the edge. There was one black bull in particular who didn't seem to like we got away. I always assumed he was the leader. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please support the robot revolution by smashing the like button and subscribing to the channel.